I don't think this guy Norman's gonna be good to have around, you know what I'm saying? Like, darkness, hello darkness, my old friend. I'm the Green Goblin once again. Like, what's up everybody? My name's Big Cam and welcome back to another Comically Boston breakdown episode. And today we are talking about episodes 6 through 8 of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. But it is also Captain America Brave New World Day. I can't wait to go see this later tonight with my buddy Langone. And breakdown and review of Captain America Brave New World will be on the channel tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But let's jump right on into Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, shall we? This show has been really, really good, and episode 6 is titled Duel with the Devil. So immediately, from the trailers we knew and like, you know, stuff behind the scenes, immediately I was like, oh shit, this is the Daredevil episode? Cool. I didn't know how or where he was going to come in, but I knew he'd be there, especially from the title, Duel with the Devil, right? So you're like, okay, this Spider-Man is fighting Daredevil this episode. That's cool as hell. But coming off of last week's episode, in the end of last episode, Peter brought Harry with him to go to a movie kind of date with Nico, and he's not sure if she's mad at him for that. Lonnie got his new nickname of Tombstone, and the mystery inventor was revealed to be Otto Octavius frickin' Doc Ock. And of course, this episode opens with that banger of an intro, and then we open on Peter and Nico in class, and Peter kind of distracted in, you know, trying to get her attention. She's not listening, and then gets in trouble with the teacher and gets another student in trouble. Like, poor Peter, man. He just can't do nothing right. He's always screwing something up. But his intentions are always good. Like, he just wanted to be a good kid, talk to his friend, and then he was trying to make friends with the other kid, but he's not paying attention to the class, and he's like... And the teacher's like, I get that you're doing well in this class, but you can't distract other students. What are you doing? He's like, my bad. You know, I'm just thinking, why is Nico mad at me? I love the little poster for this episode. It's got Daredevil over there, and it's like, ally or enemy? It's got Joe's Pizza on here, a password for his Wi-Fi or something, his login account, Spidey senses, Spidey abilities, Spidey sense. Too plain, he's going through the different symbols of his spider. He's like, perfect. Who am I? And also has Doctor Strange up top there. So I don't know, maybe Doctor Strange will return in the final 2 episodes. He's not in these 3 episodes, but Daredevil certainly is. We also find out that Lonnie officially got kicked off the football team this episode. And he's been missing school and missing practices and missing games. And so he's officially off the team, and he has chosen the life of crime and villainy and gang. Oh man, poor Lonnie. And then Pearl grabs him and they have a little argument, and Lonnie's refusing to let her help him and won't talk to her and won't tell her the truth. And oh man, I really like the two of them together. I love Lonnie, but now Lonnie's turning full villain and full heel turn, and it's just crushing me. But I still like Lonnie, and Tombstone's a badass nickname, but it, you know, it is what it is. And then Peter runs after Nico and asks if she's mad that he invited Harry to the movie. And she says, no, don't worry about it. So then Peter immediately turns around and goes, I want the 3 of us to be friends. And starts doing name math and going, well, if Peter plus Nico equals friendship, then Harry and Peter equals friendship, then theoretically Nico and Harry should equal friendship. And she's like, well, listen, Nico plus math equals homicidal rage. Like, stop using my name in math. He's like, all right, well, Nico plus Peter equals fun, right? Like, Peter is cool, but he's also a super nerd, you know, like, and we love him for it. We do. Lonnie goes home from school early, and his parents are like, hey, you're home early, no practice? He's like, I got canceled. They're like, all right, well, I wash up, the floor's clean, don't wear your shoes in the kitchen. And, you know, he kind of goes to go upstairs, and his brother Dre, his younger brother that Lonnie's been with the 110 gang for him, you know, because getting him out of his mess, real talks him and starts, you know, throwing some good points at him, like, listen, how are you gonna hide this from mom and dad? Like, you skip a practice, you skip a school, like, what happens when you come to graduation and they're sitting there like, oh, well, Lonnie, why didn't you graduate? Because you haven't been at school and you haven't been playing football? Like, you're just gonna keep lying to them and lying to everybody? And Lonnie gets mad and leaves, and we see that Lonnie's been getting followed by Camilla Black and the Scorpions, and you're like, oh fuck, I hope Lonnie realizes he's getting followed here, but he doesn't quite yet. Then we cut over to Harry and Peter talking, and we see Norman Osborn is heading out to a gala dressed to the nines. He's got like a full suit on and shit. Peter's like, you look like a friggin' spy, a superstar, you know, a movie star. Or see, I think he says secret agent. Like, you know, Bond, James Bond. Harry, Peter, and Nico have a movie night over at May's house, and May is about to take out for the evening, and she goes, listen, I left the rated R movies that you really shouldn't watch right on top, right? Like, so she's the coolest. And Harry thinks raisins are caviar. He's like, what's this caviar? She's like, it's raisins, you dummy. And he's like, well, it's great. And she's like, you never had a raisin? Like, and then Harry says, your mom's really cool, Pete, and thinking May is his mom. And then Peter makes this awkward, like, oh, my mom died and your mom's not around and Nico's an orphan, so we're kind of all orphans, huh? And I kind of like make this awkward orphan connection, and they're all kind of like, yeah, real smooth, Pete. That wasn't weird at all. Super weird. And then Harry and Nico's personalities start to clash, and one of them wants one movie, one of them wants the other movie, and then they're both kind of like, no, your movie's better, your movie's better. How do you know you haven't seen it? No, I trust your opinion, right? Like, they're trying to make friends, they're trying to both get what they want, and Peter's like, listen, one of you wants a slasher, one of you wants an action film, no worries, we got Predator. And as soon as he said it, I looked over at my roommate and was like, that's a pretty solid slasher action movie, right? Like Predator, right? Like, awesome. Love the Predator movie, by the way. All the Predators are great. We then cut over to Norman at the gala, and he talks to Secretary Ross, about to be President Thaddeus Ross in today's Captain America Brave New World that I'll watch later tonight. But Norman tells Ross about Spider-Man and wants to register him as the Sokovia Accords, but wants to keep his asset hidden. And he goes, so you'll sign for this John Gallo? Almost like John Doe, clearly using a fake name for Peter. So Norman's trying to cover for Peter, but also, you know, kind of letting the government know, like, hey, you know that guy Spider-Man? He's mine. And it's like, okay, so if they're looking for Spider-Man and his tech, they know where to find him. He's at Oscorp, right? Like, Peter still is a vigilante after all. He's not necessarily the good guy to everybody, even though for us, we know he's the hero. And right as he's talking to Ross about registering Spider-Man for the Sokovia Accords and being compliant with that, he also says, like, listen, if you need me to help you track down other Avengers, Oscorp would love to help. And you're like, ooh, okay. So Norman's trying to be the guy hunting down Avengers for the government. I mean, just to stay on the good side of things, I guess Norman will do anything. But on the little tablet that he handed Ross, it seems Oscorp has a security breach. So Norman calls Harry, because Peter shut his phone off, and asks for Peter immediately. He's like, what's up, Dad? Oh, he wants you, Pete, right? And now, so the three of them are sitting there, and Peter has to take the phone call with Norman Osborn, and Norman wants him to investigate the breach at Oscorp, and Peter says he'll do it, you know, kind of reluctantly. But now this leaves Harry and Nico to be left alone at the apartment. It's like, uh-oh, how's this gonna go? We then cut to Lonnie finding out that Camilla Black has been the one following him, and he runs, and as he's running, Bulldozer grabs him and hides him in an alley, and they think they get away clean, but it looks like Camilla Black has now learned the location of the 110's base. Peter swings over to Oscorp, and he finds a guard unconscious. But meanwhile, back at the apartment, things seem awkward at first between Harry and Nico, but then he asks her about tarot cards that she has, like, in her pocket or something, and relates to her about that on that level, and, you know, just finding anything to be friends. But you're like, ooh, awkward tension at first, just trying to be friends with somebody you're not necessarily friends with, and you're like, oh god, this has to go well, please go well. Don't embarrass yourself. But then we find that Peter finds the intruder is Daredevil, voiced by Charlie Cox, in a black suit, and they're up on the roof, and they have a great little fight. And I love the introduction of Daredevil here, because you hear the Daredevil, like, Netflix theme song, and we also have Daredevil Born Again coming up very soon in March, so very excited for that season 1, and coverage for that will be on the channel soon. But here's that clip of Daredevil and Spider-Man meeting for the first time.
Stop right there.
Don't mind me. I was just leaving.
We were just getting to know each other. Hang out for a while.
Huh. This stuff is sticky.
Yeah, it's web. I'm a spider. It's kind of my thing. Isn't that obvious?
Not from my perspective, but I'll make a mental note of it.
I guess you saw that coming.
Not quite.
I love the blind jokes, right? Like this fight goes on for a little while, and it has so many little quippy blind jokes and like funny Spider-Man jokes and funny Daredevil jokes, and then how they're like, oh wait, they're fighting each other. But Daredevil's like, definitely taking it easy on him because he's a kid and not, hitting him with lethal strikes. But the black suit does look really cool. I do love that it's Charlie Cox voicing it. That feels very right. And hearing the little Daredevil music in the background's awesome. The silhouette of Daredevil in the moonlight just is a great shot. But the two of them, fighting ends up with Peter getting hit in the head with one of Daredevil's batons, and he kind of like throws it like Cap's shield, and bing bong bong, and it comes and ricochets around and hits Peter in the back of the head and knocks him unconscious. And Daredevil isn't the bad guy, but does say, hey, Norman Osborn is up to something, right? Like you're a young kid and you're trying to do the right thing, but this isn't it, right? Like you're taking down the wrong guy here. So what is Norman hiding, and why did Daredevil show up? Hopefully we'll find that out in the remaining episodes. We don't find out what his deal is in episode 7 or 8. So maybe in 9 and 10, the last 2 episodes, we find out what Daredevil's deal is. But we then cut over while Peter's unconscious to Nico and Harry, and she's giving him a tarot card reading, and it's not going the best because Harry's like, I like tarot for the fashion, and she's like, I thought you were serious about this, and starts to give him a reading, and his first card was the devil, and he's like, cool, so what's that? And she's like, I thought you were into this, and Harry, ends up getting Nico heated, and she's like, me and Peter are best friends, we tell each other everything, and he's like, everything? So you know? And I was like, oh no, Harry. And she's like, no, what? Peter's secret? And she's like, yeah, of course, I know all of his secrets, but you'll have to be more specific. And then Harry tells Nico that Peter's Spider-Man. And I was like, oh, Harry, no! Damn it! One of the guards wakes up Peter on the roof, and Norman returns from the gala to talk to Peter about Daredevil and the devil, but instead avoids talking about the devil and says that Otto Octavius is, and they were both lab partners back in college or whatever before Oscorp, and Norman tries to swing that Otto hired Daredevil, and Peter's like, Daredevil, it didn't seem like all the other ones, like, he was trained and smart, meaning that the normal people he's facing relied on tech. They were untrained and dumb. And this guy was like not relying on tech, wasn't trying to hurt Peter, and he's Daredevil, right? So I would really love if even if we don't find out in the remaining 2 episodes of this season, I would love for season 2 and 3 to become like, instead of Norman's his like mentor, what if Daredevil and him are mentors and they start working together and they start hanging out, and like, I would love that. And I'm sure Charlie Cox would be down to voice this character whenever they need him to. Peter returns to Nico and Harry, and Nico is like, yeah, Harry's trying to tell me you're Spider-Man. And he's like, and she's like, yeah, that couldn't be right, and pulls open his bag, and the Spider-Man costume mask falls on the ground, and a notebook of him drawing Spider-Man costume, like the OG red and blue suit that he wants, and she's like, oh, I gotta go, right? So Nico really finds out that Peter's Spider-Man, and Harry's like, I thought she knew, and we're all like, faceplam. Lonnie at the 110 hideout talking to Big Don, and Big Don's like, listen, if you're scared or you're don't want to go back home and lead the Scorpions back to his house and his family, you can stay here and we'll keep you safe. And he's like, yeah, thanks, Big Don. But we see Camilla's got eyes on the base, and she's on the phone with Gargan, and Gargan is getting Scorpion tech from Octavius, and this Scorpion tech looks wild. The tail is real long and can really cause some serious damage, and Gargan's already a psychopath. So what will happen in episode 7 called Scorpion Rising? Alright, on to this episode. So Scorpion's got tech from Otto, Lonnie got kicked off the team, Nico knows Peter's Spider-Man, Daredevil's out there somewhere. That's where what we've learned from episode 6, and now episode 7 opens on Peter chases after Nico. She won't talk to him, and Pearl's like, ooh, why is the dynamic duo fighting? And he's like, ah, God, I screwed up. And she's like, at least you know what you did. And Pearl and Pete talk about Lonnie, and he's like, hey, I thought you would have known for sure what's the deal with Lonnie. And she's like, Lonnie's been ignoring her, and she thinks that she's the problem. And he's like, what? You could never be the problem. problem? You're too beautiful. Like, you're my crush. And then Peter acts a fool and embarrasses himself. And Pearl's like, never change, Petey. I love when she calls him Petey. I'm like, oh, that's his MJ. They're gonna kiss. They're gonna fall in love. Even though she loves Lonnie, but at this point, Lonnie and her are on thin ice. Lonnie gets a phone call from his mother and lies to her on the phone about what he's up to. And as he's lying to her on the phone, like, yeah, no, don't worry, I got everything under control, we see that the 1/10 is gearing up with lots of firepower, guns friggin' everywhere, as they're gearing up for round 2 against the Scorpions. Norman asks Peter to come to his office about tracking down Otto Octavius by tracking the element he used in the energy used for his weapons. And Peter says, now trying to narrow down the element he used. Would he use tritium? And he's like, I'm not sure if he could have the resources to get that. And that's just a funny little statement because Dr. Ock got tritium from Harry Osborn in Spider-Man 2, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. I was like whistling the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. I'm sat down. I was like, oh, tritium, I know that term. And then the next topic brought up, Peter goes, solar? And Osborn laughs and goes, I doubt he's harnessed the power of the sun. And it's like, the power of the sun in the palm of my hand. Another great line from Alfred Molina's Doc Ock. But they narrow it down that lead is the element that he was used in his power. And it's like a lead-based polymer thing that ends up being used, and they end up narrowing down that the lead is used for housing gamma radiation or something like that. And he's using gamma is the energy he's using in... And Norman's like, this is dangerous stuff. I stopped working with him in science because he wanted to get into using gamma. And I thought it was too dangerous, so they split paths. They then, as they're, talking about the energy reading, they get a big energy reading heading towards Harlem, which is heading towards Lonnie's direction in the 110. And Norman says, I'll run guy in the chair for you today. Harry's dealing with a personal matter. And that matter being going to make friends with Nico. And we actually see Nico talking to the purple necklace and saying, fine, I'll give him a chance and hear him out. And I was like, what? So she is talking to the necklace? What does this mean? And then if she is talking to the necklace, who or what is in the necklace? And like, okay. Is it her parents? Is it a demon? What is it? I need to know. But we see Harry buys Nico pizza, and Nico's upset because she's left out of the loop, and she doesn't like that Peter's not being honest with her, and feels like she'll be left behind, like everyone else has always left her behind. And he's like, Peter would never leave you behind. And she's like, he already has. He's been off playing hero with you. And he's like, and Harry's like, I'm not the one that lied to you this whole time. Like, it makes you feel any better. I just found out because I was in the right place at the right time. Or wrong place at the wrong time, for Peter. Harry goes, I can see this isn't going to work. And then he goes, I'll drive you home. And she goes, nice car. I don't even know how to drive. And he offers to teach Nico how to drive. And apparently shit's not going well. But then a girl in a sick whip pulls up and it's got flames on it and stuff, and the girl starts talking shit, and she's like, oh, Nico, are you Harry's goth girlfriend? And calls Harry that Osborn brat, and Nico's like, oh, screw you, let's race. So then they race, and we see like Nico's purple necklace glowing, and as she's about to crash, it like maybe the necklace or maybe her, or maybe it just like embeds her with the power to swerve out of the frickin' way. Then they end up hitting like a speed boost and she wins the race, and you're like, hey, Nico! I thought it was also funny that the do-a-flip guy, I don't know the actor's name, but he's hilarious. He was in Spider-Man Homecoming. Do-a-flip! Yeah! And then he was also the bus guy recording the live stream for Shang-Chi in the Legend of the Ten Rings. And he's now also the guy, he's live streaming, and he gives them the 3, 2, 1 countdown to start the race. I was like, just funny as hell that they just threw him in here. Like, yeah, no, that face, everyone recognizes him in Spider-Man. Like, throw him in that Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Why not? We then cut over to Lonnie at the 110 base, and Pearl shows up out of nowhere because she got a text from his brother saying, I need to tell you what's good with Lonnie, and he wants Pearl to talk him out of, his crazy gang streak or whatever he's doing here. And she's like, this isn't you, Lonnie, come on, come with me. And she tries to help him, and he says he doesn't want her help and doesn't need anyone's help, and he's got everything under control. And as he's saying, yeah, I got everything under control, the Scorpion bursts in with his new Octavius tech, and Gargan wants to kill Lonnie, but Spider-Man swings in, and we get a big Scorpion Spider-Man fight, and it's like, whoa, this is getting crazy. But as that fight starts to begin, we see Nico gets dropped off by Harry, and they kind of, make up, and they're Gucci, and she says that Peter and her she's still mad at him, and for him not trusting her. And Harry talks to her a little bit more, like, listen, maybe he didn't want to tell you to protect you, he has his own reasons, I'm not him, your problem with him, you'll have to solve with him, but I hope that I am now your friend, and we can be friends. And they're either now friends, and the three of them will be good friends, or, until Nico and Peter make up, but it's looking like maybe, I think at least, that Harry and Nico might date. I mean, she kind of like, whatever, Osborn, and then goes, hey, Harry, and then like they kind of, she kind of looks back as she walks in, and he kind of smiles thinking about her as he walks away, and you're like, I don't know if that's friendship. I think that might be a little bit more of they might date eventually. That's my call. I'm calling that they'll date eventually. Or there's just something to do with Nico and the Osborns, right? Like that purple necklace, I don't know. But we then cut back to Peter risking his life fighting the Scorpion, and Peter webs up Gargan and uses all of his web fluid to do it. So now he's out of webs, which is like the only advantage to Tobey Maguire's organic webbing, is that it's just always going until he has a web blockage and it loses his powers in Spider-Man 2. That does happen, but at least he doesn't run out of fluid. But Peter thinks he's all set and goes, alright, I'll start heading back. This guy's webbed up. And Norman's like, okay, and puts down the earpiece, because all Norman cares about is finding Otto Octavius. And so he's trying to narrow down where Otto is. He thinks Peter's on his way back. But just as he puts down the earpiece, the Scorpion overheats his suit and potentially grafts the suit to his skin, and this could be why the Scorpion ends up having this Scorpion tech on his body for permanent measures. This guy's crazy, he really is. But so he melts the webs by overheating the suit, and then he attacks Peter and stabs Peter, and Peter's on the ground bleeding out, and he's stabbed, and he starts getting beat up by Gargan and the Scorpion here, and you're like, holy crap, like Peter's just really like on death's door right here. And Osborn only finds out that Peter's in trouble because he gets a notice on his thing that the Spider-Man suit's been punctured, and he's like, that shouldn't even be possible. And Peter's like, it's possible, I need help. Like, you're like, he does. His kid's about to die. So Peter asks for help, and it seems Norman springs into action. Although we don't see him in action, we just see a glider come in and kind of, smoke out the area and really piss off the Scorpion. And the glider ends up, Pete climbs onto the glider, and then the glider flies him away to safety. But that's where this episode ends. They cut to Peter dying, bleeding out with a stab wound through his body, as like the suit's all beat up, and he's just like flying away on a glider. And then immediately I'm like, okay, where's this glider? Like, what goes with this glider? Is this friggin' Green Goblin's glider suit? Like, this would be so thick if this season ends with Norman as Green Goblin this whole time. Like, ooh. But so the credits roll as Peter flies away, hurt pretty damn badly, as the credits they're not like the normal credits with music. The credits are on fire as the Scorpion was in an anger-fueled rage, just rampaging through the city of Harlem and destroying the 110's base, and like, ooh, crazy episode. But the next episode, episode 8, is titled The Tangled Web, and this one opens with the classic Spider-Man image of Peter throwing away his Spider-Man suit. Although we don't see him do that in this episode because he's hurt and bleeding out, this suit gets thrown away, retired, because the suit's totaled. But this image was a classic comic book image, and it was recreated for Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire. But a just really cool reference to the comics that they put here. And I was just like, man, this show, the creator, Jeff Trammell, and like everyone involved, really doing a great job just to create a Spider-Man universe that feels unique itself and really cool and dope stuff. I'm really into it, but let's get into this final episode of the 3 that were released yesterday. Episode 8, Tangled Web. We open in black as the Scorpion beats us up, right? It looks like he's like beating us up. As Peter's eyes open, he wakes up on a hospital bed and a doctor says, oh, he's just a kid, which is another Tobey reference from Spider-Man 2, where he's like unmasked on the train and they just look down like, he's just a kid. Ah, God, such great Spider-Man lines. But the doctor takes Peter's blood, and I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. You know, Peter's like, oh, no. You know, like, what are they going to do with this friggin' blood? I don't know, but that's going to come back, and that's not good. I just already have a terrible feeling about that. But Norman says Peter has been healing remarkably fast, and it's only been about a day, but Norman covered for him with May, had Harry call May and say Peter's going to spend the evening with us, but Norman notifies Peter that the Spider-Man suit is completely totaled, and Peter's really bummed that he lost to the Scorpion, is worried that if the Scorpion hurts people, he'll blame himself, and you know, he'll be to blame for all those people getting hurt, and you know, he could have stopped them. And Norman says he will call the authorities to deal with Otto because he found his location, and all the police in the city are after the Scorpion, so he shouldn't worry about that. He should just worry about resting. And then Norman calls Secretary Ross, so maybe he does call the police and proper authorities, but you know, I still don't trust Norman. He also says Peter can leave when he's feeling better. So once Peter's feeling up to it, he goes to start leaving, and then someone screams, and Peter, you know, with a sling and, you know, fucked up face, springs into action and runs over, and he's like, what's going on? Wait, everyone all right? And they're all kind of looking at him like, are we all right? Are you all right? And he's like, yeah. But then we see that they were screaming because a science project started working, and it seems that Dr. Carla Connors, the person that Peter was supposed to be working on this project with, has finished their energy converter thing that they were supposed to be making. And then Connors goes, is talking to Peter and goes, do you know why they're bringing so many animals into the lab? And then we see lizards in crates into the lab, meaning this is maybe Carla's new project. Oh, you're going to be using limb replacement, and maybe she turns into the lizard sooner rather than later. That would be cool. Or Norman is using Peter's blood for something, and he's using these lizards and animals as test subjects, trying to figure out, I don't know, a super soldier serum, a super spider serum, whatever he can make from Peter's blood. But I don't love that they have his blood. That's just really slimy. I certainly hope that they're not doing that, and it's lizard Dr. Connor stuff. But I still don't. I don't trust Oscorp. I don't trust Norman. It just gives me the itch. Gives me the heebie-jeebies, you know what I'm saying? Peter then goes home and hugs it out with May, tries to just skate by her without her noticing, but she sees him with a sling, and he blames it on a skateboarding accident and on why he's hurt. May believes it and kind of says, you shouldn't try and do that skateboarding again. You look like you're really bad at it, because he is quite hurt. But she also, you know, is talking about Ben, and they kind of have a heart-to-heart, and he's like, I feel like I'm screwing everything up, and, you know, they have a good moment together, and she hugs him and comforts him, and just, you know, May is that mother figure that he doesn't have, but needs and, you know, has, you know, like, May's great for Peter, you know, and the only real parent he has. It's a shame. It's a real shame, because Peter doesn't have his own parents, his uncle, right? All he's got is May. And poor Tom Holland doesn't have anybody anymore. He lost May, and nobody knows who he is. He doesn't have MJ or Ned anymore. Like, oh, that's heartbreaking. We then cut over to Otto at his office as police come to arrest him. So Norman did alert the authorities, but Otto's arms don't come out of his back, but come out of the ceiling and start taking care of business of all these police officers that came to arrest him. And he uses a bunch of other tech, and music's playing, and he's dancing around, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is great Doc Ock stuff, because he still looks like comic book accurate Doc Ock. He's got the stupid bowl cut, and you're like, oh man, this is so funny. But so he uses a bunch of his other tech to defeat the police and get out of there. And then as Thaddeus Ross walks up to him as he's walking out, he's like, you're under arrest, come on, Otto. And he's like, oh, sorry, I don't have any funds for the VFW, which is Veterans Fund. Then Iron Man shows up and the cavalry shows up to arrest Otto Octavius. So Otto should be arrested, you know, if they have an Avenger here to arrest him. And we get a comic book accurate old classic Iron Man suit with like the slits instead of the glowing eyes like our Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man. But they do pop open the thing and you're like, yeah, that's definitely Iron Man. Tony Stark stuffed into that Iron Man suit. Really love just that Iron Man shows up and you're like, yeah, dude, this is a world that isn't ours. So all these heroes can show up whenever they want. You have free range. Do what you want. This is cool stuff. Like, anybody hating on this show is just an idiot. I don't understand. But this has been awesome so far. Peter, resting, has a nightmare about Nico, and he sees her falling in darkness, and Lonnie gets wrapped up by the scorpion and it's choking him around the neck, and the city's on fire, and then he gets stabbed and wakes up heavy breathing, and you're like, oof, poor Peter having a crazy nightmare. But Peter's all in his head and, you know, thinking about Norman saying that he needs to be on another level and Spider-Man needs to be on another level. But it's been 2 days and Peter's pretty much all healed up, so that's pretty spectacular for somebody that got stabbed through his chest out his back, right? Like, and also just a good like storytelling device that like, oh, Peter can get beat up really badly by these villains and then in a couple days be back at school and not be, you know, in a cast and leg brace and look like he got robbed and beat up and mugged, you know, like, you know, he's always having to say, I tripped and fell on a pole, I was skateboarding, right? Like, he always has to make up something for his injuries, but it also keeps it in the realm of like, oh, this could happen. He's got crazy healing factors where he's healed very fast, you know, like, this guy was in a sling a day ago, all of a sudden he's like, oh, I'm good, like, wants to get back out there being Spider-Man. You're like, dude, Spider-Man is a beast. Peter then calls Nico and leaves her a voicemail and leaves like a heart-to-heart and his big apology for not telling her he's Spider-Man. And as he's leaving this voicemail, Pearl calls him and they need to finish their school project together. And so Peter immediately rushes over to his crush Pearl's house. And then once he gets there, he finds out that Pearl's friend bailed on them because a friend's dog died. Like, she's not coming, so it's just the two of them. They start bonding and actually having a cute little moment, and you're like, oh, Peter's about to get the girl. And as they're bonding and as this is all happening, Lonnie knocks on the door and shows up, and Lonnie talks to Pearl and won't abandon the 110 because they have his back. And she says, if you should be thanking anyone, you should be thanking Spider-Man for swinging in and saving your ass, and he's the one you should be thanking. And Pearl says to Lonnie, if you're going to go back then, I want nothing to do with you. And they kind of officially break up. And it's like, ooh. And then Pearl walks inside and goes, sorry about that, Pete. And Pete jumped out the window and took off after Lonnie and tries to reason with him and talk to him, but it's unsuccessful. And then Peter sad walks home. May's not home. He sees a little picture on the fridge of Ben and her and him and remembers their conversation from earlier and goes and thinks about Pete needs a role model like Ben that he can look up to and talk to about things he needs to talk to about. And as he's thinking this, he thinks that Norman is this role model that he can look up to and ask advice. So he goes over to Oscorp Tower and asks advice, and Norman sends Harry outside, and Norman talks to Spider-Man, and we get that classic Spider-Man line, but with a dark, villainous twist on it. And Norman says, with great power comes great respect. And all of us were like, oh my god, how do you butcher our favorite line? Like, with great power comes great responsibility. But from Norman's perspective, with great power comes great respect. Norman says Spider-Man got beat up because he was holding back and the Scorpion wasn't. And if you don't have respect, you have nothing. You need to give the world a reason to respect you. And then Norman leaves because he says he has to go do something. And you're like, holy shit, fucking darkness. Like, is this now going to be a darkness turn for our boy Spider-Man? Or is this just now Spider-Man realizing that I don't think this guy Norman's going to be good to have around, you know what I'm saying? Like, darkness, hello darkness, my old friend. I'm the Green Goblin once again. Like, ha 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 ha. Sorry, Sorry, so sorry. We then cut over to Dimitri, which was one of those 4 robbers that we saw in the earlier episodes, but he has a mask on and he looks like more of the comic book accurate chameleon, and this is a perfect chameleon, right? Just a mask and a guy in a mask. Perfect. The accent was great. Him talking to the 110 and giving them all the information he has on where Gargan and the Scorpions got their tech, and all the people got their tech beforehand, and, you know, Otto and all that stuff. And, you know, Big Don says, we're going to get this stuff, and we got a leg up on them Scorpions. And, you know, everyone's kind of like nervous. They don't want to get attacked by Matt Gargan again. And Lonnie rallies the troop. What it? What it? What it? And everyone starts, you know, hoot and hollering and rallying around the 110 and Big Don. And Tombstone's really leaning into the Tombstone. But then Peter talks to Harry about what him and Norman just talked about, because Harry runs back in. He's like, what was that? What did he say? Peter's worried that he's going to get stuck with the bill for all the Spider-Man stuff if Norman and him stop working together. And he's like, I don't have $1 trillion. Come on, man. And Harry's like, listen, you know, tells him I need great respect to make people respect him. And Harry's like, my dad's not wrong. Like, from his perspective, that's what he would see. He has great power, and with that comes great respect. But Harry ultimately says that Peter is Spider-Man, and at the end of the day, it's up to him what Spider-Man does. And then as they're saying this, an alert comes in of a truck hijacking, and Harry talked to Oscorp Techs to get a new suit made for Peter and Spider-Man, and this time with a bit more color. And he goes, I took a couple snaps of those drawings in your notebook, but I hope you don't mind. This is the OG suit. And Peter's like, Harry, you did this for me? Oh man. So now it's time to get Spider-Man back in action, and we cut to credits as we see the OG Spider-Man reflected in Peter's glasses. And I actually have a clip of the ending here.
Go get him, Tiger.
Harry says, go get him, Tiger, as we see Peter, you know, kind of like, and he like locks in, and then we see the reflection of the Spider-Man suit and the glasses. It just looks really, really good, and I can't wait for these final 2 episodes next week. Episode 9 and 10 breakdown will be coming out Thursday next week. I can't wait. This show's been awesome. I've had a great 3 weeks so far with this show, and the 4th week next week will be awesome, I'm sure. And then we have 2 more seasons coming at a later date, so stay tuned for future episodes, guys. This is a really great show. If you'd like to talk to me about more Spider-Man, links down in the description below for all of my other social medias. But just to recap where we are here, at the end of these 3 episodes, at the end of episode 8, heading into episode 9, as we go to credits, the Scorpion is still on the loose, and the 110 gang are going after Gargan in the Scorpion. Octavius should have been arrested by Ross and Iron Man. It looks like Spider-Man is going to have his classic suit for the final 2 episodes and into season 2. Is Norman going to be the Green Goblin in these final 2 episodes? I would like you to comment your answer down below. Do you think the Green Goblin's coming? And do you think Daredevil will come back? I thought it was really awesome to see Charlie Cox as Daredevil in this bitch. So, really cool there. I love the universe. I love Coleman Domingo as Norman. And if we get to hear Coleman Domingo cackle laugh as Norman, this is going to be an awesome show, an awesome ending of this first season. I can't wait. Already has been greenlit for season 2 and 3, I heard. So, very fun stuff and exciting stuff here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, the best way to do that is by liking this video, commenting down below, subscribing if you have not already. Hit that bell so you don't miss future videos and you get the notifications. Once again, my name is Big Cam. Thank you guys so much for coming on by. I really appreciate you guys. It means the world to me if you made it this far in the video. And I will see you, beautiful people, yes you, in the next one. Peace.